Hello everyone, welcome to Matrix Uploaded. This is English and it's grade 10, 11 and 12 because we're looking at writing and presenting. And our focus is explanations and directions. What kind of things can you be asked? Well, here's an example. A task that you could be given is to write an explanation of how a common object is operated or works. A common object like a cell phone, for example. So something that you know about, and you could be asked to write an explanation of how it works. Remember, there are always the steps of the writing process, and you really must follow them. There's always planning and pre-writing before you even think about writing a draft. You need to consider the structure, and it's amazing how many students do not consider the structure. I'll say to them, okay, you've got a few ideas. How are you going to structure this? And they say, sorry, what? Huh? Sorry? Structure. What order is everything going to appear in? Very, very important. And then aspects of language. When you are writing explanations and directions, think about the fact that you're probably going to be writing in the simple present tense. You're going to say that the kettle works in this way. It operates in this way. And remember, when you're using the simple present tense, that third person singular ends with an S. The kettle boils. The bicycle wheel spins. So do think about that third person singular, he, she or it, and then that verb has got an S on it. You're likely to be writing in the simple present tense. Why? Because you're talking about how that thing operates now. You might like to think about conjunctions. Remember, those are your joining words, and words that show time and words that show result. So you might say something like, this happens and then that happens. When this has happened, then this happens. That's time. And then result. If you plug it in this way, it will do that. So you need to think about conjunctions, the links between your ideas. Then what about the register? Remember, most teachers talk about register as formal or informal. How will you know which register to use? It really depends on what the explanation is about and for whom you are writing that explanation. Obviously, a more trendy, fashionable, relaxed audience, you're going to write in a more informal style. For a more serious audience, you're going to write in a more formal style. So just watch your audience. We've talked about the fact that instructions and directions will probably be written in the simple present tense, which is also part of your register and your style, and that you may use conjunctions and logical connectors that signal time. Signal time is show you that you're dealing with time, and logic is this, then this, then this. That is logic. It is following in order. Then causal conjunctions and logical connections. The kind of examples that you might like to think about are words like so, or this causes this to happen, or a word like because. You may also use the passive voice. Now, the passive and the active voice are something that you should have discussed in your language lessons. And so you're going to take this and you're going to apply it into your writing. Remember, what is the active voice? The active voice is when the subject does the verb or the subject is the verb. Now, what do I mean by that? If I say the kettle boils, the kettle is doing the boiling. It is active. But if I say the cell phone is switched on, then it is passive. Why? Because now you've still got your subject, but something is happening to your subject. Something is done to the subject. The cell phone is switched on. The cell phone is not doing the switching. So now it is something happening to the cell phone. We have talked about the purpose and the audience and the context. Remember, you must brainstorm ideas for your topic using example mind maps that you might like to use. Always ask, how am I being evaluated? How is this going to be judged? Where's the rubric against which my work is going to be marked? Remember to research the topic, for example, in a library, and to select relevant information, to identify your main and supporting details, and to sequence your ideas, as we said, in a logical order so that they make sense. And we're going to continue to look at explanations and directions in our next segment.